Have you ever felt a deep connection to a place you've never been? Or felt like you've known someone your whole life, even though you just met? These feelings often lead people to wonder about past lives and reincarnation. While many associate this idea with Eastern religions, what if I told you there are intriguing passages within the Bible that some interpret as pointing towards the same concept? Today, we're not here to declare a definitive doctrine, but to embark on a fascinating exploration. We'll look at specific verses and historical contexts that have led many thinkers, both ancient and modern, to ask, does the Bible support the idea of reincarnation? Let's dive in with an open mind and see what we can discover together. First, let's address the elephant in the room. The mainstream Christian view today does not typically include reincarnation. The common understanding is that we have one life, followed by a final judgment. This is based on verses like Hebrews 9:27, which states that people are destined to die once, and after that to face judgment. This is a clear and important cornerstone of Christian theology, and we must acknowledge and respect it. However, the Bible is a vast and complex library of books written over centuries. Could there be other perspectives woven into its fabric? Our goal here is to explore those less traveled paths and understand the arguments that have been made. Let's begin with one of the most cited examples, the identity of John the Baptist. In the Gospel of Matthew chapter 11, Jesus is speaking about John. His disciples are puzzled. The scriptures, specifically the prophet Malachi, predicted that the prophet Elijah would return before the coming of the great day of the Lord. So they ask Jesus about this. In Matthew 17, Jesus gives a very direct answer. He says, "Elijah has already come, and they did not recognize him." Then the disciples understood that he was talking to them about John the Baptist. Earlier, in Matthew 11, Jesus says, "And if you are willing to accept it, he is the Elijah who was to come." Now this is fascinating. The phrase, "if you are willing to accept it," suggests that this might be a difficult concept to grasp. Jesus isn't saying John the Baptist was literally Elijah in the same body. Elijah was taken up to heaven in a chariot of fire centuries earlier. Instead, this suggests the return of the same Spirit, the same mission, the same spiritual essence in a new body. This is strikingly similar to the concept of reincarnation. Interestingly, when John the Baptist himself is asked in the Gospel of John, "Are you Elijah?" he says, "I am not." Some see this as a contradiction, but others interpret it as John not being consciously aware of his past spiritual identity, or simply stating that he is not literally the man named Elijah, but the one who fulfills his prophetic role. This complex and layered interaction is a primary piece of evidence for those who see reincarnation within the biblical narrative. Let's move on to another powerful story, this one from the Gospel of John chapter 9. Jesus and his disciples encounter a man who was born blind. The disciples ask a very specific and telling question. "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Stop and think about that question for a moment. How could a man have sinned before he was born to cause his own blindness at birth? The very question presupposes the possibility of a pre-existence, a life before this one where an action could have consequences in the current life. If the idea of a pre-mortal existence was completely foreign or heretical, we might expect Jesus to correct them immediately, saying, "That's a ridiculous question. People only live once." But he doesn't. Jesus responds by saying, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him." He redirects their focus from blame and past karma to divine purpose and present healing. He doesn't rebuke the premise of their question, which is the key point here. The disciples' question suggests that the idea of a soul existing before birth, and potentially carrying the consequences of actions from a previous state, was a concept present in the Jewish culture of that time. Jesus' choice to answer the question without dismissing its premise is seen by many as a subtle acknowledgement of the framework from which it was asked. This idea of the soul's pre-existence wasn't just a folk belief, it was a subject of serious theological discussion. Origen of Alexandria, one of the most influential early church fathers in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, wrote extensively about the pre-existence of souls. He theorized that all souls were created by God in the beginning, and that through free will some fell away from God. This earthly life, then, is a journey of education and purification to return to that original state of unity with God. While Origen's specific teachings were later condemned by the Second Council of Constantinople in 553 AD, hundreds of years after he lived, his influence shows that these ideas were a significant part of early Christian thought. The very fact that a council had to be convened to officially reject these ideas proves how prevalent they were. Some historians argue this council was a turning point, where the doctrine of a single life was solidified for political and institutional reasons, pushing the more mystical concept of rebirth to the fringes. Let's also look at the words of Jesus in the Gospel of John, chapter 3. Nicodemus, a respected Jewish leader, comes to Jesus at night. Jesus tells him, "Very truly, I tell you, no one can see the kingdom of God unless they are born again." The Greek word used here is anothen, which has a brilliant double meaning. It can mean again, but it can also mean from above. Nicodemus gets confused and takes it literally, asking, "Surely they cannot enter a second time into their mother's womb to be born?" Jesus then explains it's a spiritual rebirth. However, for those who look at this through the lens of reincarnation, the ambiguity is intentional and profound. To be born from above could mean to be born from a spiritual source, and to be born again could mean to enter another physical life. Could Jesus be using this wordplay to speak on multiple levels, offering a simple meaning for the uninitiated and a deeper one for those with ears to hear? It's a compelling thought that adds another layer of richness to this famous passage. Let's circle back to the Old Testament. The concept of cycles is everywhere. Ecclesiastes 1:9 says, "What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun." While this is often interpreted as the repetitive nature of human history and seasons, some see a deeper, more personal meaning. They see it as a hint at the cyclical journey of the soul itself, returning to the world to learn and grow. This aligns with the idea of karmic cycles found in reincarnation philosophies. The soul keeps returning until it learns its lessons and achieves a state of completion or liberation. Even the prophet Jeremiah speaks in a way that suggests a pre-mortal calling. In Jeremiah 1:5, God says to him, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." This verse clearly states God's awareness and relationship with Jeremiah's essence before his physical conception. While this is often seen as an example of God's foreknowledge, others interpret it more directly, that Jeremiah's soul, his true self, existed and was known by God prior to his earthly life. This idea of a pre-existing soul is a foundational requirement for the theory of reincarnation. So, what do we make of all this? We have John the Baptist as the return of Elijah's spirit. We have the disciples' question about the man born blind, which presupposes a pre-mortal existence. We have the historical reality of early Christian thinkers like Origen, who championed these ideas. We have the dual meaning of being born again, or born from above. And we have Old Testament verses that speak of divine knowledge before birth and the cyclical nature of existence. None of these verses explicitly say, reincarnation is real, and here's how it works. It's not that simple. The Bible is not a scientific textbook or a direct philosophical treatise on the afterlife. It's a collection of sacred stories, poetry, prophecy, and letters meant to guide us spiritually. The interpretation often depends on the lens you use to read it. For those who believe in reincarnation, these passages are not contradictions, but rather hidden treasures, dots that connect to form a beautiful, coherent picture of the soul's long journey home to God, a journey that may span more than just one lifetime. This exploration doesn't diminish the power of a single devoted life. In fact, it can enhance it. The idea that our souls are on a continuous journey of learning can give profound meaning to our struggles and our relationships. It encourages us to act with compassion, knowing that the consequences of our actions, both good and bad, may shape our future experiences. It's a call to live this life to the fullest, with purpose and love, as a crucial step on our soul's eternal path. Thank you so much for joining me on this thought-provoking journey today. I hope it's given you some new perspectives to consider. What do you think? Do these verses point towards reincarnation, or is there another interpretation you prefer? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content that explores the fascinating mysteries of faith and spirituality. Until next time, stay curious and keep seeking.